Oh yeah, the slide board. Slide boards are fun, hey?
So much fun. So much fun. I fucking
So
love it.
what do you do on it? Like,
I mean, there's different types of slides, but then I also have like the thigh bands, and
okay.
so that adds to the torture slash fun of it.
Can you when you get, because you're just like crazy building your inner thighs right now with that slide board, and so can you do a video after you like do this for a long time where you try to squash a watermelon and like explode it? I love those videos, they're so funny.
I'm gonna need to get paid a lot more before I do that.
Create a gif, make one of your famous gifs of you. That would actually be a really funny gif to use in the quick coach user
If it
group.
wouldn't hurt, a pineapple would be funnier, but that would hurt.
Nah, pineapple would hurt a lot. Yeah, you don't want to do that to a pineapple. Although I do very much appreciate your offer to destroy a pineapple, so that there's one less pineapple that could go on pizza and ruin pizza. I very much appreciate that.
Your hate for pineapple pizza is so strong. And it's so consistent. I have to respect it. But it's also dumb. And why am I in the mini box? I feel like I'm in podcast jail today. Like I've got a window. Like, what's this about? I don't get it. Is this ruining the quality of our
Probably, probably,
of our
especially
production?
because I'm going to be talking about how we're like aiming to promote the podcast and get a whole bunch of people interested in it and stuff like that, and using omni-channel. Do you hear that, man? That's a fancy name that people use. Omni-channel for omnipresence. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of omnis involved in what we're
I
doing.
thought you were saying
And
hominy for
so,
some
omni,
reason.
omni, OMNI. It's one of
I
those
got
like
it now.
because we're like teaching Calvin how to read right now. I'm realizing just how ridiculous the English language is, and the amount of times where he'll like say a word and we're like, no, like that's actually not the correct word. Like technically it should be right, but it's not actually right, and we have to. And I'm doing this every single day with him, and I'm just like, God, like how would you learn the English language as a second language? Because people all of the time, like I was talking to Allison about writing because she helped me. I put a birthday thread. I'm going viral on Twitter right now. Everybody, by the way, that's a thing. And it's funny because Allison helped me write a thread. Basically, I put together a really detailed thread of just like lessons because it's my birthday today, and so it was like lessons that I wish I knew at 27 that I now know at 37, which is a great hook for anybody, by the way, for content, but Allison helped me with it, and one of the things that she really helped me figure out with this thing is just like the importance of just communicating these ideas so simply, which is really hard to do. Like it would be so much easier. Like when I used to write articles for the PTDC, it's like I could write 1,500 words if I wanted to. It's like, well, now I get 280 characters. And I got to put 3 thoughts in that. Mm-hmm. Like, holy crap. But I don't remember. That wasn't the point that I was going to make, and I completely forgot the point that I was going to make.
About
So-
omni channels.
Yeah,
that-
there was something about Omni.
You were
Right.
talking about the English language, Jonathan, and how difficult it is to learn as a second language.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. So when you're creating, no, this is like a really important lesson. So when you're creating content, a lot of people sound like pompous assholes when they create content because they're trying to impress people like them because they're in communities of people like them who think like they do, who have the expertise that they have because that's their social group. So they're trying to like almost like have this ego play within their social group of trying to sound smart using these big words, using jargon. Whereas the reality of it is, people always say English is the most common language in the world. It's not actually. English is the most common second language in the world, if you think about it. There are actually there are more people who speak English as a second language than any other language in the world. And so when you're writing, you actually should write like at a 5th grade and below level. And one of the tricks that I now use to do this is I use the Hemingway app now to write my captions. I never used to do that before. but it actually counted touchdown. I know Amber's been telling me to do this for a long time. But what it does is it tells you what grade level you're writing at. And I aim actually for 3rd grade level, and most of my writing is 1st grade level. And the reason for that is just I want more people to understand it. Knowing that simple is always better, using simple words is always better, short sentences are always better. The easier you make it to read, the more people will be able to understand it. And it's because English is the most common 2nd language in the world. And I never quite put those together before.
So this app is called Hemingway. Like Hemingway, does it correct what you've written, like it, or does
What's
it just
do, Amber?
tell?
I mean, you use it more.
So it tells you if a sentence is overly complicated. It'll tell you the reading level. It'll tell you if you've used words that are kind of too common. So like if awesome is a word that gets used too much, it'll suggest that you use something different. That sort of stuff.
Yeah. So for example, like one of the traps that I fall into writing quite a bit. I'm just bringing up like the caption that I wrote today. And one of the problems that I do a lot, which I think is pretty common, is I'll use words like simply. And so, there's a saying that I've always loved but now know to be true. There's a simple saying that I've always loved but now know to be true. There's when we experience hardship, we discover what we're made of. When we experience a lot of hardship, it's like there's just, you see the minor differences. There's just extra words. There's all of these qualifiers. And what happens with good writing is that good writing is harder than bad writing, and it uses a lot more words than bad writing, because bad writing has all of these qualifiers that actually reduce the amount of power in the writing. And so, and then there's all of these like kind of back off words that people use because they can't figure out good words to use. And like one of the things that Alice and I were talking about this the other day when we were going over this list. She's like, oh, it's like, why don't you just like say like, if you want to be successful? I'm like, no. Like successful is one of those words that people use when they can't figure out a good word to use. It's just kind of like a catch-all, like type of thing. And so Hemingway doesn't help with that, but that's the sort of idea, is these qualifiers are very rarely needed. English can be a very succinct, powerful language if it's short. And then you can there's nothing wrong with long sentences, but especially if you write on the internet, the trick actually is not short sentences. The trick is not long sentences. The trick is to intertwine short and long sentences and to build a bit of a cadence between them and draw the reader's eyes down the page.
That I don't want to let slip the masterful job that you've done here of explaining in the longest possible way how short English language can be.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was intentional, but you've really drawn, the contrast between the two concepts. And I didn't know it was actually your birthday. I thought that was like some type of podcast euphemism for maybe drug behavior or something. I didn't. So it's actually your birthday today. I didn't know that. You don't strike me as an October child, Jonathan.
I am very much a late year birthday. Because I'm a smaller guy, and I was always like behind, which forced me to always kind of catch up in everything that I did, and I was always the underdog, and I like love being the underdog. Like I was never picked early in sports, like I never like did that well in school. I feel like I always needed to kind of like scratch and claw, which I kind of feel like is a late in the year birthday kind of phenomenon. It's like you're always going to be smaller, you're always going to be behind, because when you're younger and you're 10 months younger than somebody else,
that's a long time.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it's a big stretch. Like,
yeah,
when you're 5, the stuff you can learn in 10 months over somebody else, it's a pretty big shift.
It's huge, right?
Yeah, that's a long time. So you were talking about something that I was interested in, but I can't remember what it was because there was so much that you said that I was not interested in that I've forgotten what the interesting part of what you were saying was. But happy birthday. I guess put that on the card, you know. You were interesting earlier, but I wasn't paying attention. Happy birthday, Hallmark.
And as my birthday present, of course, the construction workers outside decided to cut through metal quite literally the second that this podcast started outside my office.
I can't hear
they
it.
weren't doing this. They weren't doing this more than a second ago. This is what happens when you make a podcast. I have a great space. It's quiet. It's pretty noise proof. But there's not that much that you can do when there are three men quite literally cutting through metal outside of your window.
I love it.
That just started doing it, but I think they're pretty much.
I like the fact that Jonathan has on a hat. I do not.
Yeah.
And Amber's delts are covered. We're setting a precedence for this podcast that immediately tells me it's going off the rails within the first 10 minutes.
That's right.
Whatever we produce here. Just don't put my name on it.
Well, the visual appearance for this podcast actually matters a lot. I want to talk about how this podcast is going to be promoted a lot. I changed that, Amber, last minute. That's the first thing on my list there, because I feel like it's something that people would be interested in. So there's basically two pieces of promotion, right? One is brands. Basically, you got to do dope shit and talk about it in a dope way in order to build a podcast to be interesting. And if you never do dope shit, it's kind of hard. So you've got to at a certain point do something notable and remarkable in order to remark on that thing. And a lot of the time, people who produce podcasts and stuff like that just never do dope shit. And so they never have much to talk about. And so that's number one. But that's one of those things where it's you can't really talk about that on a podcast. You can't really give advice for somebody. It's well, actually what you need to do is spend 10 years toiling away, grinding, actually doing shit and building real businesses and meeting interesting people, and then come back and build a podcast. It's ain't nobody going to listen to it, but that's kind of the reality. And perhaps what we can do at the end of this, Amber, is talk about my 4 stages of content production over the course of your career, which I think is really important, which we can come back to, which is you create content for yourself, for your clients, for your industry, then for the world, in that order. And I think a lot of people creating content on the net try to create for the world before they've done anything that the world at large is interested in, and then they get upset that nobody is paying attention to it. And so we'll talk about that at the end, but I want to talk about the more tactical stuff about growing a podcast, because I think it'd be interesting in this early episode to look back at this later on and actually look at how it worked or didn't work, because I'm sure that there's going to be a fair amount of course correction. Is it cool that we... Because, Amber, most of it. I don't think, Glenn, you know any of it.
I try to know as little as possible every single day of my life in regards to anything that pertains to Jonathan Goodman. It's kept me clear of a lot of different situations. So are we about to talk about the Omni vision or the Omni dope shit vision? What's the subject matter? Is that what we want?
Omni dope shit presence vision. Yeah.
Okay. Let's hear about the Omni dope shit present ODSP.
ODSP, you know me.
ODSPV. So we're about to talk about the ODSPV, which is the Omni dope shit presence vision of this podcast. Yes. And every good podcast needs an I've forgotten the acronym already. Go ahead, Jonathan. Take it away.
Yeah. ODSP, you know me. Who are we? Boop boopity. Okay, so one of the really difficult things with
Did you
the
throw
podcast,
a Disney tag at the end of this?
I was going for "Are you down with OPP?" and you went a totally different direction.
The boop boopity. Isn't that what the fairy godmother says to Cinderella? She says something like boop boop. Oh, that's Betty Boop.
I know that's Betty Boop. Yeah.
Yeah. But there is a Oh, bippity boppity boo is what the
Boppity boo.
the fairy
I had
godmother
to do
said.
up my shoe.
That's enough, Jonathan. Go ahead. Tell us about the OmniVision dope shit,
Okay,
Jonathan.
the OmniVision dope shit. Here's the so podcasts. I think
Sweet Jesus.
in terms of like curating community and building a reputation and trust and whatever with the audience, I think they're about as valuable of a medium as you can have. The problem is that they're unbelievably difficult to grow. Mm-hmm. Like of all social media platforms, content platforms, possibly YouTube, but like I think podcast is the single most difficult platform to grow. And the reason for that is that you've kind of got to like own your soapbox online. There's content that you use to get attention, and then there's content that you use to go deep with somebody. And if you use content to go deep with somebody as a way of getting attention, you're going to have a hell of a time. And you kind of need to like separate the two. And a podcast is something where you have a really good opportunity to go deep. I mean, when you gave me shit earlier about like the short sentences, but the reality of it is my front-facing social media content's job is largely to get attention and build rapport with people. And that's why the short sentences and podcasts are beautiful, because they allow you to give much more context and nuance and go deeper into it. And so the issue with that, of course, is how do you get somebody to listen to a podcast? Because it's commitment. And number one is you actually build an audience somewhere else, and then you start a podcast. Like trying to grow an audience from nothing with a podcast.
Right.
It can be done, but holy shit, it's a slog. Like, it's going to take you some time. Like probably 2 years before you really gain anything. And that's if you, like, do a good job. But there are tools now at our disposal that were not quite there back when we did, like, the Online Trainer Show or any of the other stuff. And so I want to talk about how we're taking this one podcast episode and turning it into 40 pieces of content.
All right.
And
This is interesting.
yeah, and so we already actually got back. So the first episode that I did was a solo episode that was like 12 and a half minutes. And it got turned into 9 shorts that are going to go on 4 platforms each. So 9, 18, 27, so that's 36. Plus the long form content, plus the long podcast, plus the long form podcast on YouTube, plus 2 clips that are going to go on YouTube as well. So that's what, 4? So that's 40 pieces of content, right? And so the way that it works is this: you have the channels that we're working with are as follows. All of the podcast channels. So you upload to Libsyn. I don't know, Amber does this, but you upload to Libsyn and it basically sends it to space and puts it down on all the podcast platforms. So like Spotify, iTunes, whatever, wherever you listen to podcasts, which is why this is available there. There's YouTube, where the full video of the podcast will be on YouTube. And this is something that old people like me don't quite understand, but like people watch YouTube as TV now. People use YouTube as their podcast now. So instead of using like Spotify as a podcast app, they have a YouTube subscription, which allows YouTube to play in the background, and they'll just like walk with YouTube playing, right? So they'll listen to full podcasts on YouTube, the same type of thing. So there's YouTube, and then there's YouTube clips. So a clip is anywhere from sort of 2 to 5, 3 to 5 minutes, where that's just going to go on YouTube. It's going to be edited, and that is a single clip from the show that we think is really interesting or compelling, like basically like we do a good idea or we do something good for like that period. So those are pulled out by a video editor and put on the YouTube channel as individual YouTube videos. Right, so now on YouTube, if you're following, we've got the long clip, right, the entire show. Okay. We've got 2, I say sort of like 2 to 5, like it depends on the show, but we'll have like a minimum of 2 individual clips that are like 2 to 5 minutes each that'll go on YouTube as individual videos. And then what I do after the show is I actually go through the entire episode and I pull out content for shorts. So that's anything less than 60 seconds. And I'll pull out the timestamps, and that will be like, okay, this is going to make a really good short. Now, a short is a TikTok, is a Facebook reel, is an Instagram reel, and is a YouTube short. And those are all actually the same piece of content with slightly different contextual wrapping around it, like with a little bit different, probably not different editing, although there will be. We're gonna test, the video team that we have is gonna test different intros, like the first 3 seconds, for example, on TikTok matters much more than the first 3 seconds on like Instagram, for example. Instagram, they'll give you a little bit more leeway. TikTok, if you don't hook them within like the first half second, you're basically dead in the water. But then it's the thumbnail. So what I do is I cut out the short, the 60-second clip, or 60 seconds or less. Some of them are like 15 seconds from the show, and I put the timestamps on a document afterwards, and then I pull out the thumbnail text, right, which is like it's kind of like a compelling headline or whatever it is. And then when the show goes live, so we're going to be putting these shows live at the beginning, at least on Mondays and Wednesdays. When the show goes live, we'll effectively promote it for 48 hours with all of these pieces of content. Now, the different pieces of content have different jobs. The podcast and the long YouTube video and the clips are going to promote my newsletter, 5 Reps Friday, which you can get at 5repsfriday.com, which is my weekly newsletter. And they'll promote that. But all of the shorts job is actually to promote the podcast or the longer YouTube video. You see what I'm getting at here? And so what you can do now that you could not really do before is leverage these platforms and their search algorithms to just almost like play a numbers game. And just fire this stuff in there. And so TikTok is just a pure numbers game. Like we'll be putting 5-6 TikToks up a day to promote the thing. On Instagram, though, I've got my main Instagram account, which is Itch Coach Goodman, which I'm not going to put these shorts because I can't put 5 Instagram reels a day on my Instagram. Like that would just blow people out. So I created a new account called Goodman Show Clips. And that account's only job is to just fire clips. And so what that does then is only one of those has to pop off. Like that's like a numbers game where it's not a matter of each one. And so anyway, all of this to say, we'll be taking one piece of content, which is the big podcast. We'll be taking that piece of content and putting it on a podcast on a YouTube. We'll then be cutting up that piece of content into, say, 9 shorts. Those 9 shorts will be put on 4 different platforms, right, after the fact. All with the job of promoting the podcast. And then as we get guests on the podcast, of course, we could start doing some collabs and stuff like that with the shorts. So I wanted to share all of that because nobody talks about this kind of stuff. Like, how do you actually promote a long form piece of content ongoing to build an audience with substance? How do you leverage these like micro platforms to be able to almost engage people deeper and deeper and deeper as time goes on?
It's so first thing, there's been way too much talk about going deeper in people and with people on the podcast. I've been uncomfortable the first 2 episodes I've been here. Just want to throw that out there. If I'm understanding correctly what you just explained, Jonathan, because I haven't eaten today, we got the turkey. We're going to take that turkey. We're going to go to the turkey sandwiches, you know, and then we're going to take those turkey sandwiches. We're going to turkey salad. And when you think there's no more turkey left, we got turkey soup for you. Is that so pretty much where you're coming from? Do I have a good understanding of what Omni Turkey Presence Vision means?
Yeah, so the turkey gets eaten as the turkey, and people love the turkey. And
they love the
all
turkey.
in on the turkey, and they attend the turkey dinner,
It's
and they're like,
moist.
"Yo, this turkey is good."
A
But to
moist
invite
turkey.
somebody to the turkey dinner, you got to be like pretty tight with them because you're not going to invite somebody in your house for the turkey dinner.
I ain't
But
eating
then you're
just
going to take
everybody's
that
turkey.
turkey, and you're you're going to cut that shit up and you're going to bring it to lunch with you the next day and you're going to be like, yo, you want some turkey salad? And people will be like, it's pretty good. Yeah, I'll check out some turkey salad. But then you're going to take the bones from the turkey and you're going to make it into soup. And then you're going to offer everybody the soup because you're going to have so much soup. And people are going to be like, yo, the soup is pretty good. I wish I had some big turkey. And you can be like, well, next time you can come and get the big
hearty soup. That makes sense.
Yeah.
This is good dinner plans. I'm going to play guitar at dinner. I've got some Joni Mitchell that I've been working on. So it sounds like we actually have a plan for this fourth iteration of the podcast. Like, this is much more thoughtful than any other production I've been associated with under the large umbrella, I guess, the turkey farm of the PTDC, if you will. So, all right, we're
PTDC
turning
is
out
a bunch of turkeys, man. We're a bunch of turkeys.
Bunch of turkeys.
But you know what it is? It's a matter. It's the result of focus. I do so much less these days than I used to do. We do so much less at the PTDC than we used to do, but we're much more conscious about the decisions we make of what we do and we don't do. And when we decide to do something, we fucking do it.
Right.
It's this. I said to Amber back in November last year, I was like, we need to do less, but better. And what we do needs to actually make sense within the construct of everything that we want to build, which is largely building for the future.
Right.
Like you think about the difference between somebody who promotes every single day on their social media, like buy from me, buy. You see people all the time when they're putting out content, and then they just have like a copy and paste, like buy my book in their caption every single time.
Right.
Like $50 off my ebook on some shit you don't actually want, but like I'm hoping that you'll like for some reason buy it today instead of the last 3 weeks or whatever it is. And like every single thing, they're trying to put like a deposit into a savings account, and then they're just withdrawing right away. Whereas content largely is a savings account, and if you do it right, you actually should never have to withdraw from the savings account.
Right.
It just grows and compounds over time, and it grows so big that all of a sudden it just kicks off so much interest in people that just like come to you and they're like, okay, I've been learning from you for so long, like what do I buy? And you're like, well, you can buy this if you want. And they're like, yeah, oh my God. And you're like, okay, I guess I'll sell that to you. Like that's kind of the strategy of how to do it, right? But if you get yourself into a corner where you have to generate income to this is the corner that we put ourselves into before, where we had so much payroll, we had so many like contractors that we were paying, consultants that we were paying. It was just, I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a month were just going out, and I was like, what are we getting from this?
Right.
Like, Jesus, man. Like we have these 3 consultants that were all paying $6,000 to $10,000 a month, and all that they're fucking doing is building me nice PowerPoint presentations. And it's, you know, I think we learned something from some of them for sure, but you could not convince me that it was a good investment. And it wasn't their fault. They were good at what they did. The problem was that we brought them in to consult on things that were the wrong things for us to work on. It was like, how do we improve the paid marketing of our blog content on the PTDC? Was like one of the groups that we brought in. And they were really good at that. But we should not have been trying to start paid ads on Facebook to blog posts to a personal trainer blog and increase conversions to try to get people to buy our certification. What instead I should have been doing is what I'm doing now, which is turn those same blog posts into really simple Instagram posts and get 500,000 people to see every single one of them.
Right.
For free.
You can get a good look at a T-bone by shoving your heads up a bull's ass, but I'd rather take the butcher's word for it. I think that's what you're saying.
You know what's funny? That's exactly what I was saying.
That's exactly what you were saying. So we've got our turkeys in a row. We're doing things for real this time. How much longer before I get fired this time? Does that extend me, 6 months? I'm feeling like you said a 2-year mark there somewhere, so I'm feeling like I got at least 2 years before I get fired this time. I feel more secure in my job this time because there's an actual plan. Of course, the plan.
There's a plan where this all leads, right? Like there's a plan for actual growth as opposed to hoping and praying. I think a lot of the time when people, I guess this is like kind of like a content episode. I guess a lot of the pitfalls of people, or the traps that people fall into when they create content, that I fell into when I was creating content for a lot of years, was not putting appropriate effort and attention into the distribution of that content. Mm-hmm. There's this kind of like holier than thou belief of people where it's like, oh, I just want to produce the material that I produce, and if people love it, then they'll share it. It's like, yeah, but they don't. Mm-hmm. And they haven't. And you've been doing this for years. So clearly what you're doing isn't working. Why do you think magically it's going to start working? What's happening is A, you're not quite hitting the topics right, or what more often happens is you hit a topic right and it popped off and it did well, and then you were like, oh yeah, that was great, and then you just like did different shit, whereas like your audience just like gave you it's like, no, if you do something well and you talk about a topic that people really respond to, you should then continue to talk about that topic basically forever. Mm-hmm. And you know, like, fine, obviously a few topics on that, but like clearly that's what's resonant, as opposed to continuing to explore. You know, like if something works, you don't just leave it. And so like step 1 and 2 is like just testing a whole bunch of different stuff. Step 2 is actually looking at the feedback that comes in and assessing it and looking at what your audience, your community is telling you of what works and what doesn't work. Step 3 is doing more of what works and getting better at what works. Step 4 is distributing it. Mm-hmm. And distributing it means content partnerships, means networking, means finding other people that you like, legitimately enjoy them and who they are, and sharing their work, building collaborations with them, or paying them to share your work, you know, if it's the right type of person. Like I really want to grow my Twitter right now. And as we speak, I'm going viral on Twitter. And like I've been tweeting for a few months. And like every single day I've been tweeting like 3 or 4 tweets a few months. I've been trying to write all these threads on Twitter, trying to grow on it, that type of thing. And like, you know, every once in a while I'll have one that will have like 50 or 100 likes or whatever it is, like 10, 15 shares. But most of them have like, you know, maybe 3 or 4 shares or whatever it is. Well, my tweet this morning, my thread this morning now, an hour into it, has 99 shares, 570 likes, which means it'll probably get 3,000 to 5,000 likes and like 500 plus shares. Mm-hmm. It's already gained me 300 followers on Twitter in an hour. And the reason for that is, A, instead of trying to do like a whole bunch of different stuff, I just did one thread really, really well. Mm-hmm. And I've built relationships with other people who are notable on Twitter. You know, like it's platform specific, right? So if you want to grow on a platform, you've got to meet people who are on the platform. I built good relationships with them. Like I knew some of them. I didn't know other ones. I had phone calls. I met these people. We've had conversations. And then I put it out. And then I send them a message and I say, hey, can you do me a solid? Like, do you mind sharing this one? Right? Like I made a very specific ask, but I concentrated that ask around one piece of content. Mm-hmm. Because I was like, this is the piece of content I want distributed. This one piece of content can do more than, this one piece of content already is doing more than months of content.
And you'll maintain that track. You're finding what works.
That's
giving them more. So this sounds like the Papa Swolio method.
This is kind of, well, it's
because he found the one thing, and he leans into it.
Yeah, and so I don't know what he did. Like what you do when you're big is often very different from what you're doing when you're growing. And Twitter is interesting for me because I'm growing there, right? I mean, some people know me just because they've known me from stuff I've done otherwise. But for the most part, nobody knows who the heck I am there. So it's me going, kind of from scratch. You know what I'm saying? And it's interesting because I can see it from the other end. Like on Instagram, like I can do stuff. I could do the same thing as somebody else on Instagram, and mine will pop off and theirs won't. Because I've earned that. Like I've earned that reputation there to do that. But on Twitter, I haven't. And so my point in all of this is when you are putting out content, if you're serious about it, you need to consider distribution. How is this going to reach the people I want it to reach? And in considering distribution, what you do is you figure out a way to test material, right? Then when you have something that works, you take a step back. You do that thing that works as well as you can, like better and better and better. Like as well as you can, you put it out, and then you concentrate your efforts afterwards, your network afterwards, to promote that one thing. It's kind of like a thunderclap effect, where it's better to put all of your resources into one thing that you think is really good than it is to dilute them over a whole bunch, because that compounds. Like as you grow a platform, that platform is now a platform that you own that will then help push out the next thing you do and the next thing you do and the next thing you do. And it's like a stepwise kind of growth pattern.
So you become a grower and a shower, is what you're saying.
And I'm looking at my lawn and I need to be a mower.
That's enough rap for today, Jonathan.
Got in last night from a concert, have to take a shower.
No, sir. I
Coming
don't condone
up, it's
this.
another 15 minutes till the hour.
I don't condone any of this.
Why, it doesn't have enough power for you?
So the Papa Swolio principle of personal, I don't have a fourth P. I don't know. But so I think I understand what you're saying. Now, if you have content and it's going and you're doing lots of different things, you dilute the good stuff. And people just want the good stuff, right? They've told you what they like. Just go ahead and give them that, and then get better at it. But then as you get better at it,
it doesn't have to look good.
They just have to like it.
Good. My content's janky as all hell. Look at my Instagram, dude. It does not look good.
No,
People are like, yo, you got to do video. Yo, this has got to look good. Yo, it's like, look at my content, man. It's janky. Like,
but
it's
it
the
works.
message. It works. It works because I've tested those messages over and over and over again. I know the types of phrasings that work. I look at the comments of people that respond back, and I look at interaction in those comments. Did somebody write a comment with specific phrasing or a specific point that got a lot of response? Well, I might then take that and rework that into another piece of content. Like, it's just this continual process of just getting to know your message, what you believe, better and better and better. It's not trying to make it look good. Sure, make it look good afterwards if you really want. But there was this, you know what I heard the other day? It was a podcast I was listening to, and he was talking about a conversation that he had with the CEO of the X Prize, which is the company that's owned by Google, that its job is to basically do these insane things like moonshot, 10x moonshots to like move humanity forward. Like basically Google just throws a bunch of resources at them and it's just like, do this ridiculous stuff that like we don't believe is possible to like move society forward. But like this guy still has a budget and still needs to like responsibly manage a budget, but they also have to test these insane ideas. And so how do you do that? And the way that he does it, his mental model is a monkey juggling fire on a pedestal. And here's what he means by that. And I really like this.
It's very descriptive.
He says, if we decided that we wanted to train a monkey to be able to juggle fire on top of a pedestal, we're not going to build the pedestal first. Because we know we can build a pedestal. Now, it might be hard, it might cost a lot of money, but we know we can build a pedestal. What we're going to do is we're going to test whether or not we can train a monkey to juggle fire. Think about how much we see this with the students we work with in the Online Trainer Academy or anybody building a business. the first thing that they default to is, I need to make my logo great. I need to make my website great. I need to do all of the shit that you can do, right? And you can always do that later. What you don't know now, your monkey juggling fire, is whether or not anybody's willing to buy what it is that you do. Your job is to prove the assumption first that you have something valuable. And if you don't, then you need to figure out how to offer value or communicate value or build an offer so that people actually want to buy the thing that you're making, that you're selling. You don't build the pedestal first. You know you can do that. You know you can build a website. You know but it feels good to do all of these things. It feels good to build the pedestal because it feels like you're working. Like, how many people listening to this, anytime that they have an idea, the first thing they do is they go buy the domain for that idea. It's just, it's all of the stuff that costs money that takes away, like, and so what we need to do, and this whole process of creating content is like, I don't give a shit how it looks first, because bad looking content, if it's really good, will still perform well. And then if you can figure out a way to make it look good or like be well branded, like maybe it'll perform better. Maybe it might not, by the way, but maybe it'll perform better. But at the beginning, like, your business should be janky as all hell. And that's how you test assumptions. We were going to come out with something called the Goodman Academy late last year. And the Goodman Academy was going to be a group, was going to basically be like a school of like continuing education courses. We built long curriculums for these courses, and we actually built out 2 full courses. Amber worked hard on them. Yeah, Amber, how much do you love me for trashing all your hard work on that one? But
I'm still here.
But you've got to be willing to kill your babies, because what it did. So the first one that we tested was a course on time management and efficiency, which is something that I'm very passionate about, which is something that I feel like I know a lot about, and I can teach a lot about all of these mental models around the thing. And so I mapped out exactly what I was going to do for the thing. And then what we did is, instead of like, so we actually had a video team that we were going to hire, and they're like, yeah, it's going to be $45,000 to film these videos. I'm like, okay, well, like, maybe that might be worth it, but like, that's not worth it before I figure out whether anybody wants to buy this thing. And so I'm fortunate because I have enough of an audience and trust where I can like basically say to people, hey, you know, beta test, come and take a look at this thing. So we had 20 people who were our like testers for this first course. And we did it through Telegram, through the messaging app, Telegram. And no mic, not even a webcam, like a worse setup than I have right now, which is not a good setup. And I spoke into my computer these lessons because I had them like basically scripted out. And then Alex, who used to work with us, delivered them through Telegram one a day to these people. And we had a different thread that was a communication thread back on it. And nobody gave a shit. These were like my best customers. These were like the closest people to me that will buy anything that I do. And none of them were engaged in any way with the material, didn't change any of them. And so, great. We learned that this monkey can't juggle fire. And it was not worth building out a course platform. It was not worth building all of the marketing and branding. It was not worth filming the videos. And so I went back and I took some of those and I built them into micro content on like social media. But like, the hardest thing to do, you hear this in writing all the time, where you've got to kill your babies, is like the common theme, which is like, if you want to make a book great, if you want to make work great, you have to oppose the sunk cost fallacy. Just because you did a thing in the past doesn't mean that that thing matters. And there's a lot of courage in quitting. There was a marathon runner, I can't remember what race this was, 2 years ago or something like that, where at mile 8, she broke her leg. High-level marathon runner. And she completed the marathon. National news, right? That she completed the marathon. Oh my God, look at the story of overcoming. You know how stupid it was that she finished this marathon? She did so much long-term damage to herself that she'll never run again. Well, she started feeling like weird pain at mile 3. Like, this is like a champion marathon runner. Like, she knows what like pushing through like I'm tired pain is.
Right.
And like, yo, something isn't right. So at mile 3, she reported feeling pain. At mile 8, she snapped her shit up. And then she completed the marathon. And if you think about how much, if you think about what she should have done, which was very obviously quit, and how difficult that would have been, but how much more courage it actually would have taken her to quit. Because she finished the race, we are remarking on it. It is by definition remarkable. It is notable. We are noting it as something that is notable because she finished the race. If she quit at mile 3 or at mile 8, we'd never be talking about it. And also, if she quit at mile 3 and people said, why did you quit the marathon? And she said, something really didn't feel right in my leg. It really hurt. And they're like, it's a marathon. It's supposed to hurt. She actually would have lost status in her community, even though she did the smart thing. But the difference, and here's where I really want to bring this point to, is if you set out to run a marathon is a very arbitrary number of miles that you can run. It is quite literally the distance, I can't remember where, but from somewhere to Windsor Castle, because the Queen wanted like people to end up at the castle. Like, that's if you look at like the history of like why a marathon is however many miles it is. Yeah, Amber, look it up, what the history was. But if you look at the history, it is a completely arbitrary distance to end up at some like royal person's palace, right? So it's made up. The goal line is made up. And but if you don't finish, you feel like you haven't finished the thing. And if you start running a marathon and you only make it 8 miles, you shouldn't look at it as saying, I failed the marathon. You should look at it and say, I've gained 8 miles. Because this woman now finished the marathon, which is whatever it is, 22 miles? Is that what it is? 24 miles?
I think
What's a marathon?
23.1.
26.2.
So 26.2. So if you look at a marathon, you say, I didn't do 26.2 miles, or I did 26.2 miles and I finished it, but you snapped your shit up so bad that you'll never run again. Your game stops at 26.2 miles. If you stop at 3 miles or at 8 miles and you recover and then you keep running, you will probably run thousands more miles in your life. Mm-hmm. This is the metaphor that I want to complete this thought with, is that if you view an individual activity that you do, an individual business venture that you do, an idea that you do as its own thing, right? You will put way too much emphasis on that, which will stop you from being able to make good decisions whether to continue or whether to quit that thing. If you view that thing as part of the journey of life of your entire business venture, and you look at anything you gained in that, then you should much better be able to assess whether what you did in the past is great, but is the potential gain or marginal gain of completing or moving forward with this thing, is it worth it? In light of, this is just another step on the marathon. This is just another game that I'm going to play. And you're always going to gain stuff from it. And that's how I think is really important to look at, like, content, business ideas. Like, it takes so much more courage to quit something that isn't working than it does to continue something that isn't working. What's the marathon story, Amber? Did you look it up?
Yeah, it says, as the story goes, Queen Alexandra requested that the race start on the lawn of Windsor Castle so the littlest royals could watch from the window of their nursery. and finish in front of the Royal Box at Olympic Stadium, a distance that happened to be 26.2 miles.
Right. So it was Windsor Castle, so I got that part right, but it started at Windsor Castle. Yeah, it was like a completely arbitrary, like, it just means nothing. And like, if you think about like most of the goals we set in life, like they're completely arbitrary and mean nothing. But in aggregate, all of them are very important. But whether you like, I don't know, this is why I think this day of like goal setting, and I call it business porn. You know, you can't go very far on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or anything like that and not see all these new age business gurus, like young, attractive men and women. And it's just pure business porn. They'll like knock on people's doors and be like, "Hi, how'd you make your money?" And it's like, it doesn't mean shit, man.
Those are my favorite, by the way. Some guy drives up in the car. "How'd you make your money?"
And he's like, "I'm Mike Tyson." It's like it's so comically fake a lot of the time too.
I boxed for a living and made millions of dollars for fight. So, in summary, don't set your monkey on fire or snap your shit up, is what Jonathan's saying here today. And a lot of you are out there setting monkeys on fire and snapping shit up, and that's your problem. Do better. Was that helpful? Was that helpful for the audience?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Do better. I think do better is part of it. I think looking at this thing as part of like, okay, you're making investments, you're making deposits into a savings account, right? And you have to consider, if you are going to do content seriously, you have to consider distribution of that content. You can't just assume that something's gonna like you can't just assume that good things are gonna happen because you put out a good message. Like you have to earn the right to put out a good message and have people respond to it. Just because you said something smart on the internet one time doesn't mean anybody's going to listen. Elon Musk could tweet out the exact same thing as you, and he'll get 40,000 shares on that thing, and you'll get crickets. The difference is that he's Elon Musk and you're not. He's, whether you like him or not, he has earned a platform by doing dope shit. Like, and like, you can't downplay that. You know, whatever. What's his name? I've never listened to his podcast, but like Tom Bilyeu, the Quest Bar guy who does the podcast now.
Never.
You guys ever listen to that?
No, I don't. I didn't know there was a Quest Bar guy, but I hate those stupid ass recipes. I'm sorry.
Quest? I like Quest bars. They're like the best ones you can get at Costco.
I hate the freaking recipes. Quest bar, peach cobbler, fucking
really?
Quest bar, basketball. Like, I hate all those stupid recipes. You can't turn a Quest bar. That was probably not in line with what I was saying, but you know, you can't turn a Quest bar into any type of food. It's just stupid. Quest bar, birthday cake. I don't want that. Just eat the bar. Like, it's already a thing that you eat. Why do you need to make it into some other thing that it's not? Quest bar, Thanksgiving pudding, like, it's just stupid, dude. I'm sorry.
You're trying too hard, Quest bar.
It's doing too much.
We used to like you. Well, I used to like you. When I don't think I've ever liked you, but you should try to juggle monkeys on fire more, Quest bar. Quest bar, we at whatever the show is called. Who decided to arbitrarily speak into microphones and put it on the internet in the hopes that people listen to it. We have decided, Quest bar,
very strong
that
statement.
We don't like what you're doing. Okay?
We don't even know our own damn name.
As three people that before a week ago, when we decided to speak into microphones into the computer and put it on the internet, having conversations that would otherwise be private, we've decided that you need to take us seriously. Quest bar, I am going to have a conversation afterwards on Facebook Messenger with Ren and Amber about this, and I'm telling you about it now because we're speaking into microphones that's going to go on the internet. Quest bar, that I feel like you are not respecting me as a human. Okay, I'm a customer of yours, and maybe I'll ask my wife to stop buying your bars at Costco if you don't take me seriously. Quest bar. It's just, how dumb is this shit that like people do? It's like a conversation that you would have otherwise had like around your dinner table with a bunch of people who like hate the world the same as you. You like feel like this person on the internet you've never met like has to care about it now, you know?
I'm gonna at them at the internet. I saw somebody.
But anyway, my point is, this guy has a podcast. This Quest Bar guy has a podcast.
Right.
I think his name is Tom. And, like, I guess it's, like, a big podcast because people talk about it sometimes, and he puts all these clips up and stuff like that. And I don't know. Somebody tell me what the name is, I guess. I don't really care. But like, I've heard people say, I've never listened to it, so I don't say this, but I've heard people say, like, why do people listen to this podcast? It's not very good. How is he getting all these guests? It's like, and they're like, I'm better than him. I'm a better interviewer than him. Like, I do a better job promotion. It's like, you didn't start fucking Quest Bar Company, and he did. Your fucking Jim, who, like, lives in a 1-bedroom apartment, like, struggling to make your rent, and, like, and you have an anonymous account on Twitter, Jim, and, like, he started Quest. Like that's why people listen to him, you know?
Do better, James.
No, his name's Jim. Jimmy Jim.
That's James. That's James is Jim. You don't know that? James is Jim. Jim is the nickname for James.
Let's do one more real quick. Len, what do you got? You put a couple things in your Palesi.
Yeah.
What's Palesi?
Yeah, let's talk. This is probably the greatest lesson in marketing and sales and psychology ever in the history of. And one of the things ever in the history. One of the things
we're starting on episode 2 with the greatest lesson in the history of sales.
It's gonna be a downgrade from this. No other lesson will ever be as good as we peaked at episode 2. So after you listen to this, just throw your whole phone away. But we talk often in the Online Trainer Academy and all the derivatives of the PTDC about pricing and the psychology of pricing, and how at some levels people won't hire you because you're actually not priced high enough. There's an indication to them that what you're offering can't be that good because it's too doggone cheap. Like, you cheap ass. Nobody wants what you've got. Nobody wants it. So Palesi,
nobody wants cheap ass, right?
No.
I've been at the red light district in Amsterdam, and I can tell you for a fact, nobody wants cheap ass.
Any good pimp is going to take it off the street and put it back on with a little candy. But what I'm talking about in this case specifically with Palesi is, for those that don't know or operate outside the U.S., I don't know if this shoe store is everywhere. So the grand opening
I've never heard of it.
Okay, grand opening of this Palesi store. I think it was in California. And what Palesi actually is the shoe store Payless Shoe Source.
Oh, that's funny.
So they decided to do a social experiment as a gag for social media. So they opened a Palesi, Palessi store.
What is this?
It's a luxury Italian shoe brand full of Payless shoes. Payless shoes doesn't even sell leather shoes. Like,
listen to this. A mini runway lined with stiletto heels glistens in bright fluorescent lighting. Shoes of various types sit neatly in individual glass shelves. A statue of an angel carrying several shopping bags stands in the middle of Los Angeles. Fashionistas mill about, trying on shoes, posing on the red carpet, drinking champagne, served in tall, slender glasses. This is amazing.
They marked up Payless Shoe Store's shoes as much as 1,800% markup. So shoes that are literally $19.99, priced for $500, $600, $800, and you should see these fashionistas commenting on live video about the quality of these shoes. They weren't in on the joke, and these people were not actors. Comments such as, "You can tell fine Italian quality when you touch it. I've shopped shoe stores before. These shoes are absolutely worth $400."
Palessi is just such high quality, high fashion, taking your shoe game up to the next level, said one man wearing spiked necklaces holding a knee-high boot. It looks really well made.
It's a $19 shoe at best, which means the cost is probably around $7 manufactured. And people went ape shit over these shoes because they created an Italian-sounding name for Palessi, and because they literally took the label out of the Payless shoes, put a Palessi label in it, and marked it up. And these fashion experts were convinced of the quality of these shoes. One lady remarked that it's the type of shoe you might wear to a big event, like something at the Met Gala in New York. So at the end of the gag, these people were told, so full of shit. These people were told at the end of the gag that they were all Payless Shoe Source shoes, and they got refunds at the register, and they were given the shoes for free, which I'm sure they threw in the nearest dumpster on the city streets of LA as soon as they walked out. But this is a good experiment about pricing psychology and how people assume quality, sometimes based solely on price. But the good news is, for all you out there, if you want to hit the closest Payless shoe source, apparently they have some really nice stuff this season. Go have at it. Get you some Payless boots. Because as the slogan says, doesn't it feel good to pay less? I love that story so much.
Good show, everybody. Way better than the first one.
Good show, Jonathan. Well done, Amber.
Good show.
I can have snacks now.
I'm going to go throw on my Bruno Palessis and head out of here.